Hello and welcome to another episode of Ivy Games Weekly. I am Austin Harrison and I am joined by my co-host, Zach Dixon.
It is I.
Is he the co-host? And our special guest, Bryan Greer. At least I got that right, Bryan.
You got my name right.
Yeah, I got your name right. From Game Brigade. Super happy to have you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
If you don't know who Bryan is, he is the host of one of the best things to come out of the pandemic, which is the Game Brigade. You should subscribe to that channel right now. They do reviews, previews, playthroughs, and having conversations on your favorite board games. I did pretty good. Did I get
the figures
right? I nailed it. We met Bryan right about when Moonrakers came out, I believe.
Correct.
And I'm super excited to have him on the show. One, because he's a cool guy and I want to talk to him about board games. But yesterday we bonded on like an hour-long phone call about Star Wars and got to geek out together. Literally, it started about Ivy Games Weekly, and then we just talked about Star Wars for an hour, and we were like looking at our phones like, oh, hey, it's probably time to end this call.
I got to get back to work.
And speaking of Star Wars, we are doing a giveaway this week, and the code word is going to be "It's a Trap." If you don't know, May 4th is coming up. It is Tuesday. And that is a big day. If you are a Star Wars nerd like me, it is May the 4th be with you. And so in honor of that, we're going to be giving away a Moonrakers Kickstarter edition on that day. And you have to comment after the show is over in the comment section with the words, "It's a Trap." We're going to be doing that giveaway on May 4th on a live stream RPG for Star Wars Day. That is going to be with me, Sam, Zach, and my wife, Alana. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, come out and see that, and maybe you'll win a Moonrakers Kickstarter exclusive edition. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I have been watching your content about a little bit before Moonrakers, but I just kind of want to know like how you got into the industry. What got you started?
Well, I used to play Magic the Gathering pretty heavily. And in 2007, I started YouTube actually covering Magic the Gathering. So I've actually been doing content for a while, but that stopped about 2012. I started playing Star Wars Armada and X-Wing pretty heavily. I love those games, man.
Austin hates that game. Really,
both of them.
Can't stand it. Yeah.
So I played those games, and I made my channel kind of revolving around that. But I wasn't. I'm a gamer. I love games, and so I wanted to talk about other games. And there's a belief on YouTube that you shouldn't post what your people didn't subscribe for, right? So I was like, well, I want to talk about these Kickstarters that I'm getting and all these board games I have on the wall. So I decided, let's rebrand the channel, let's refocus and cover board games in general. And that was right at the start of the pandemic, I believe, in terms of, because I had a lot more free time, I was like, I gotta do something with my time. It kind of breathed from that and just talking about my love of gaming and being in this world.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. It is funny that we all just suddenly had more time. Like it was
out of nowhere.
Perfect. Yeah, out of nowhere. It was perfect storm for Veiled Fate because I went from like playing like twice a week at nights with people to like playing a game of Veiled Fate, like sometimes 2 games a day, just like in the middle of the day because everyone was off work. So like that was a wild time.
It's been so great for playtesting. So a whole bunch of people are like working from home now. It's just like, yeah, we can get into a game right now.
Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
If any employers are watching this, your employees definitely do not do that.
Never.
Yeah.
No. Very dedicated workers.
I'm friends with Austin on Discord, and I constantly see play testing.
Yeah, that's what it always says.
Play testing, always play testing.
Luckily, that is his job. So
it's luckily, it's a part of my job. That's for sure. All right, so you said Armada, which is obviously a buzzword for me. I have way too many Armada ships over there on that shelf. But I've actually heard you're like #1 in the world, ranked something like that.
Close. I would say adjacent to #1 in the world. When I bought into Armada, my LGS was actually doing a blowout sale, and I was like, I can't pass up 50% off.
Jealous.
So I just came home with way too much stuff. My wife was like, give me the eyeball. And when I tried to find people to play with, it turned out that no one in my area, my town, plays Armada. So I had to book a trip to Portland, Oregon, which is about 10 hours away, just to play, which is a regionals. So my first game was going to go play in a regionals event with people who've been playing for years.
Wow.
Forced my wife to play the starter game with me. So I actually knew the movements and went and played that, and I got 5th place. And I was ecstatic. I couldn't believe how well I did.
How many people showed up?
So because Armada games last so long, you're capped at 32 players in 3 rounds. And so it seems okay. So you got 5th place, only played 3 rounds. Hey, they're like 2.5-hour games.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's intense.
So after I left that event, though, I told my wife, like, I want to play this game again. Booked the next trip for the next month, which was in Vancouver, and ended up coming home with 1st place.
Wow.
So played a total of, I think I played a total of 8 games in my life. And I'm a champion.
Naturally gifted Star Wars.
And it qualified me for the Worlds for, I think, in Minnesota for FFG, but then the pandemic happened, and I don't know what happens to the invite now. So,
well, I will be cheering you on in your next match for sure.
If that ever happens, yeah.
That's incredible. You're an Empire guy, right? You play the Empire usually?
I've always been an Empire guy. I played Star Wars Galaxies, the MMO. I was an Empire guy on that. I don't know. I love Imperial Star Destroyers and Stormtroopers. They're just my dudes. I love them.
Just your dudes. Yeah. Too bad they can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah, that's it's all planned. It's all planned by the Emperor. He doesn't want them to hit them because he has further issues.
He's got plans for those people.
This is a roadmap. It's a roadmap.
All right, Zach, you're gonna have to save us from going off the map as far as Star Wars goes. So.
I'm gonna push you there. we're gonna get there.
Okay, so one of the first things I noticed about your channel was the incredibly high quality that you have on your channel. Like the look. I mean, just even this setup for your live stream, it just looks so much better than my back here. I have some nice posters, but like I'm always impressed by your stream or by your show. Do you think that's added to your success as you've been like going?
I don't think so, actually. I think content. So if anyone's interested in doing this, making content on YouTube or TikTok or any kind of platform, I think that you can do content really well with just like a telephone, like your cell phone camera. Make sure audio is important though. So you want to make sure you get some sort of audio solution. But don't spend a ton of money. I had a vision of what I wanted my space to feel like, and I wanted a space that felt good to me in terms of content. But I don't think you should be putting a lot of resources unless it's disposable income and you can afford that reasonably. But I don't think necessarily that people go to my channel and be like, man, look at that guy's background. It's so pretty. Maybe they do. I don't know.
I did. Especially
the shows, pay attention to the content,
especially the shows with the Star Wars Outer Rim box that's usually right there, and I'm always like, yep, I like that.
Well, Moonrakers is there now because you guys got that gold leaf
the foil,
the foil. It looks shiny. Too good. You gotta feature that,
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, everyone, I chose the cover art. I'm gonna put that back up. I got to choose this. I don't know if you could tell why, but it just happened to be a box of Moonrakers there. So I thought, why not use that picture, right?
It looks like we're interviewing Bryan, the
creator of Moonrakers.
Great game called Moonrakers.
I came up with this great idea. I played Dominion a lot, and I figured, how can I replace Dominion into a space theme?
You nailed it. Really great job.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's interesting because like this, as far as like quality versus content goes, we were talking about TikTok before the stream started, and me and Bryan have been kind of getting our feet wet over there, consuming, not yet creating. But it's interesting, especially coming from we're also an advertising animation studio. Like quality content is kind of our thing. Like we really push everything so far, but like especially with the explosion of TikTok, it's like. Even myself, like as someone who just like loves great art and things like that, if I see something that's like highly produced on TikTok, I'm just like, nope, that's not what I'm here for. Like I'm just like here for the laughs and here for the interesting content. And I don't know. It's so interesting because I think you're right. It doesn't matter how good your stream looks. The content is king. Like
content matters. What's interesting? There's a person you've had on your channel before, Alex Radcliffe with Board Game Co. Yep. And I found his channel when he was very small, and it was rough. But there was an authenticity to Alex's voice and his content that it didn't matter that he was using a potato for a camera because the content was so good in terms of the details and the information. You can be successful without having that. And he actually just recently upgraded his content. He got to 20,000 subscribers with a webcam and very minimal stuff. So you're able to grow without having to invest greatly, you know.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I agree with you guys. Content is king, and something that you said, Brian, really like vibed with me. It's like almost like you don't notice it if it's like amazing. Like you might be like, oh, that's nice, but you really notice it if it's bad, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's really bad, then it's just like I'm not watching this. Like I just
audio is a big thing. You got to make sure your audio is clear because people will turn off if that audio is a little iffy, you know. So video you can get by with. Make sure your audio is solid.
Nice. All right, we'll cancel our plans for the show. Successful Geek said that. Oh, I don't know why that turned on. Successful Geek has said that I'm good with an all Star Wars stream. So
all right, let's do it.
We can just do it.
Let's dive into episode 7.
Yeah, let's go.
It ruined Star Wars.
No. 2-on-1.
It really is 2-on-1.
Oh, Zach, are you a believer? Are you a fanboy of the new stuff? I don't want to derail the whole content here.
I am a lover. I am a lover of all the Star Wars.
That's good.
Maybe with the I thought Solo was especially poor.
Yeah, I like Solo.
I'm on the fence.
What about Rogue One? One. Where would you place it?
Zach, you answer first.
It's
within the top 3. It's one of the top 3 movies, man.
Second best Star Wars film.
Yeah, it's up there, man. You can't beat it. It's got the lore. It's got the feel, the grunge. You actually have a war happening. It
has K2SO.
Yeah, it shows the characters are willing to sacrifice themselves for a greater good, which is not common in Star Wars because a lot of characters have plot armor. So there's so much good, man.
Stormtroopers could hit stuff in that episode.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great.
Yeah. No, it is a great movie. I do love Rogue One, but it's also like you got to factor in like the legacy of the originals when you're like when you're you're factoring that stuff in. I'm a big JJ fan, and so like I hold
bias them. I see. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm a little biased. But anyways,
back to board game. Chuck White saw the Wormwood spoiler for later, and they have a massive like titanium D20 that they're selling for like
who's rolling these things?
They said if you don't know how heavy this is, you should not buy it.
What's the shipping cost on something like that?
Oh, I have no idea. It's got to be ridiculous. It's like $2,500. Like it's silly. But like we call our hematite Moonrakers dice table breakers.
Oh yeah,
like you need a dice tray. You should not roll those without a dice tray. And that one has to be like, it's huge. Like it's massive.
Like a softball. Yeah.
Literally. Oh goodness. All right. So your stream, something that we talked about on the call, that I really appreciated too, and we're big fans of Alex on the show, and I'm glad you brought him up. But Alex has a very different look as far as when he's looking at Kickstarter, he's looking at games that are coming out. He buys a lot of things, and then he curates his collection by selling the stuff that he doesn't like. He'll buy it, he'll play it, and then he'll sell it. And I think that's a really great way to do things, especially in his place where he's doing tons of content, just shuffling stuff out. And he's got a store where he can very easily get rid of things that he doesn't want. And you have a different approach. And I want to talk about that. And it's actually going to dovetail nicely into the rest of the show. But you have a different approach. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So my approach lately is more of a curated experience in terms of I look at my collection and I say, how does this specific board game fit into my space? Is there anything that is adjacent to it that is better too or worse than, and how does that eventually flow into it? It came from though mistakes that I have made personally through my Kickstarter experience where I was overbuying games, buying too much of games, and I said, I have to start creating a way to use my lessons that I've learned and hopefully teach that on the channel and be like, okay, how does this affect? Like, for example, there are Kickstarters there's even one going on right now that will have massive all-ins, and the value that you get there is incredible. And so it's easy to say, yes, you should back this all in because it'll hold its value, but maybe there's a risk. And if it doesn't come out well, if it's not well received, now you could be sitting with a $400 paperweight that you're not going to get through all the content. And I've done that. I backed those games and they're sitting on probably at the top of the shelf because I don't really play them as much. And I said, I don't want to do this where I'm buying games, buying all in, and I'm punished for it. So now I take an approach when I'm looking at a game on Kickstarter specifically. I say, okay, what are the feels of this game. What is the experience that this game is going to provide, and is this a moment that I can enjoy, and how does that affect my collection? And I always want people to take a look at their collection, have an idea, like, is it a 200 piece collection, a 500, or 120? Everyone has a different idea what their collection should be, and then find a way that you can move games in and out so that you're able to still play your games.
Yeah, I can't imagine which campaign you were talking about that would have that huge all-in. It's total mystery.
I don't name drop companies, but you could find massive games.
Come on, you don't name drop?
I don't, not in negative
joke.
ways.
It is a joke. I literally, never mind. Everyone will get it. All right, Chuck White corrected me. It is not titanium. It is tungsten. So even heavier.
I was gonna say titanium's pretty light, actually, isn't it?
I knew when I was saying it I was wrong, and I couldn't remember what it was. So thank you, Chuck, for correcting me there. Chris wants to know if you're a big JJ fan. Chris, I think he is a big JJ fan for reasons other than Star Wars. I don't think he grew to love JJ from Star Wars.
Come on, he's
like Star Trek.
He's like this generation's Spielberg, which is a very hot take, but I mean, not really. I mean, Super 8 is basically a Spielberg film. You're giving us Fringe, you're giving us Lost. He rebooted, two major franchises that were probably the two hardest franchises to reboot. No, three, excuse me. Mission Impossible, Star Trek, Star Wars. Like, the man can come in, bring an old fan base and bring in the new fan base. And are all his films perfect? No, but come on. He's
all right.
great.
So now this is a board game, Star Wars, and J.J. Abrams episode. So you're welcome, fans. All right. So you were talking about kind of, you got to decide how big you want your collection to be and curate it from there. Yeah. How do you personally organize your collection and curate your collection?
So I kind of talked about in terms of a feel, or in terms of a type of game. So let's say I'm looking at Mythic Battles Ragnarok. It's a good example. This is going to be a skirmish game. I have several skirmish games already: War of the Ring, Rebellion, Joan of Arc, and Company of Heroes, to name a few of them. So it's like, okay, how does this incorporate differently? And is it going to fit into my space enough that it's going to get played? And am I going to see any less play out of these current games? So like a game I have up there, one of the ones I also went all in, Joan of Arc. I talk crap about Joan of Arc all the time, though, because I am so mad about that game because it was unplayable. $400 unplayable game. So, but they promised to fix it, so I'm giving them some time.
Yeah, give them some time.
Yeah, giving them a little bit of time. They have a chance to fix it. So anyways, when I'm looking at that kind of Kickstarter for Mythic Battles, I say, okay, this is going to be $200. What kind of experience and what's part of this campaign that's going to be enjoyable? How does my player group going to enjoy it? It's a lot of personal taste that I have to go into in terms of, is this going to fit well into my collection before I decide to back it? Because originally I was backing anything that has any relevance of, like, that was a game I want. Like, I had like 50 games backed in a year, and I was like, okay, I got to slow down.
Yeah. Hey, easy way to get a super backer, so that works.
I got it quick.
You mentioned Company of Heroes. I also backed that. I don't think I did the all in, but I went pretty deep because I was planning on running a World War II RPG, and still want to do that. But I haven't gotten to play the actual game yet, just because it's pretty heavy, and I don't have anyone for my heavier side of things. Have you played it yet?
No. So we had planned the War of the Ring game as our next skirmish game, so that one is sitting there waiting to be played. Plus I was kind of wanting to paint it because some of the stuff would be really cool painted.
There is so much stuff in that box. It's
incredible,
packed.
I actually went through and added more. I backed I think half of it originally, and then once they started revealing some of the stuff that they had done through the campaign, I said, okay, you sold me. I want more. But it fit into a specific niche that I don't have. I don't have much World War II content,
right? Or
something that feels like a historically accurate game like that. I was like, this is such a unique experience. I wanted that in my collection, Plus the minis are incredible. I don't know if have you seen the minis? Have you played with them?
They're amazing. Yeah, I got them all out and showed my wife, and my wife, cool, babe.
Oh, my wife said the same thing. I was like, look at the tiger tank. Look at this king tiger. Oh yeah, that's cool. But look how big it is compared to the IS-2. She doesn't care.
That's incredible. I'm really excited to play it. I loved the computer game. Played many hours of it.
I still play it. Played it just a little bit ago.
Oh, fun. So I think there's a lot there, but yeah, I like, okay. So I like kind of like looking at, different skirmish games. Like you were talking about how you have a bunch of those, but they're all still in your collection. So it's not just like you pick your favorite of each type of game and you keep that in your collection.
I don't keep just one. I try to find things that fit different themes, but it's all, so there's a TV show on Netflix that kind of stem this. The girl talks about organized. I don't remember the name of the show, but she talks about organizing.
Yeah, whatever brings you joy.
Yeah. So does it bring me joy? Do I look at that game? Yeah, Marie the Kondo. Yeah. So does it bring me joy? Does it feel like it's gonna fit fit well in my space? If it does, I'm happy with it. There's games I don't even play. I've got the World of Warcraft board game up there from like 2004. I don't think I'll ever play that game, but I love the look of it. I'm just happy to have it in my collection. So there's even parts of my collection that are just set pieces because they just fit well, in that.
I think I'm right there with you. I have games that like I own because I play all the time, and then I have pieces like ones that I just want to own. Like I don't play X-Wing as much as I play Armada, but I bought that Corvette expansion for X-Wing because it's the presence of it is incredible. Yeah. And like that's not an amazing example because it's not necessarily going to live in a box on my shelf. It's a nice model, but yeah, I'm right there with you. As some things I just want to be collectibles, and some I want to play all the time.
And I feel like the board gaming realm has actually turned more into this collectible space. Instead of just being a place where we're buying board games, I think people are buying more deluxified components and buying higher end games as a collectible because they want it as part of their overall collection. And that's kind of what I try to aim for in terms of my curated, wall that I have.
That is really interesting. It's like originally that was driven by things being out of print, right? It was like, well, this isn't in print, so I'm going to buy it as like a collector's item. But now it's driven by Kickstarter. It's like, well, you can't get that, exclusive thing ever again, and I'm just going to buy it and sit on it, and it's going to grow in value. Why not? And if you're like me, you don't actually ever sell any games, so you just own it at that point, right? It's just on your
tell myself I'll sell my games, but I literally never do. I'm still sitting on all my Magic the Gathering collection. It's sitting in my closet. My wife tells me, "Oh, you can buy, a new car." I'm like, no, I'm never. You could bury me with it. I'm never gonna sell it.
Well, that's also like a huge endeavor to try to sell because you'll make way less money if you sell it as a lot instead of just selling it as your good cards. So that's a hard thing to sell too.
Yeah. I just recently stripped down my I have a Phalanx or what's the
Phalanx? It's definitely not a Phalanx.
Kallax? The Kallax?
There it is. Thank you. Phalanx, but phallic, that's a blunder. I had to like, it was sprawling out, it was like stacking up on top, like, extending out. And I'm like, we got to put some of these in the attic. And so I had to like go through and purge all of my, like, haven't played in years. And then, but some I left because like there's a thing that happens. And I don't know if this ever happens to y'all. It's like you have somebody over to your house. I mean, it's been a while since this has happened, but if they're like, oh, I play board games. Let me see like what you have. And it's like, there's a very, wide like variety of those types of people. And so like I did find myself leaving things in there. Like I haven't played Catan in years, but I like, had to leave that out just for like somebody to have that to like grab onto. Like I play that game, and then
just in case Sam comes over.
Yeah, Sam loves that game. It's great.
That's part of the thing I do is I try to find different types of games. So you have gateway games at different weight levels. So if I do have like one of my wife's friends will come over for a date night or something, and I'll try to rope them into playing board games because that's my literally job. And so I have different levels of gateway, different games that might be enjoyable because a lot of times people think board games are Monopoly or Sorry. I'm like, no, let's play Tokaido or Parks. Like here are some games that I think you might be interested in. So I try to also have a wide variety of different types of games in my collection, from educational games with Genius Games to very heavy Euros with Vital Lasara. So I try to have a wide variety of stuff and then niche it down from there.
Yeah, totally. I love that approach. And Zach, you one of your big things is like curating an experience for like a couple that's coming over. And do you always just stick to light games, or do you try to work them up?
Is that to me or Brian?
Both.
You.
Okay,
just to you personally.
No, I've been like expanding. Like we haven't been able to play with that many people, but my wife's sister Becca had lived with us for the majority of the pandemic, and so her and her fiance, now husband, we played games with them a lot, and they wouldn't, they only have ever played things that I have introduced them to, and we started smaller, but we've made our way to things like Wingspan, which they really really loved, and some games that are taking quite a bit longer. I'm trying to think of the heaviest we've gotten up to, but it's been going really well. Like, it's been fun to kind of see what they're into, what they gravitate towards, and then build on top of those different
mechanics,
skill sets and mechanics. Yeah.
Like, you've learned worker placement, now let's try a little harder variant of that. I find that people really, once they learn a mechanic, they can then grasp other concepts of that type of game.
Yeah. How do you guys teach them? And I'll have you start, Ryan. Like, when you're introducing a new game, do you teach it yourself? Do you send them a video before? How do you go about that?
So if it's my regular play group, I'll try to find a video. I'll watch a video online and see if it teaches well, and I'll share that with. There's usually a head person of each party, so I'll try to send it. Like, if I have a husband wife, I'll send it to whoever is the more board gamey oriented person, so they can watch it with me. But for example, last night we were playing War of the Ring. I tried my best to explain it in a way that to me seems like we can build on each mechanic. So let's talk about what we're going to see on the board, and then what our overall goal is, and then let's break down individuals. Some games it's hard to do because there's so much complex. Like on Mars, I don't know if you guys played that, but everything plays on each other. So sometimes it's really hard to teach those heavier weighted games. So having pre-knowledge of concepts of what worker placement means or buying your tableau really helps. So that's why you kind of build up to those levels by playing easier or lighter weight games.
Yeah.
I like to teach. I enjoy the teach. So I'll usually and especially with if it's us, Austin, we'll both do the research ahead of time and try and come to a game with having known how to play, and if it's our hardcore group. But if it's if I'm curating a night for people, I always love to teach because get it in their hands, and I've tried showing videos before while we're all in person, but I feel somebody doesn't pay attention.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna go get some popcorn. Something's no, you're not. We're gonna pause this.
So Zach, do you ever play games with people that you've never played, or do you feel like you need to play games that you already know before you teach?
I did it recently with
was it Wingspan?
Road to El Dorado and Wingspan, actually. I played those for the first time and taught, and it took quite a lot of prep time ahead of time. But neither of those games are absurdly heavy. I wouldn't do it with things that are heavy. I've tried that. I think I tried to do Throughout the Ages with a group. I think Austin,
Through the Ages, yeah.
Through the Ages, yeah.
It took us an hour and a half to learn, and it was too late to even start at that point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do feel like that as a host, I don't know if this is necessarily common in all board game realms, but I feel like the host should really go out of their way to know as much about the game as possible before people come over for the teach, so that you are being respectful of other people's times. I had last night I was saying a bad example. We played War of the Ring. My buddy came over at 8:00. By 10:30, we hadn't even played the first round. We were still trying to figure out this game. And he ended up staying till 1:30 at night, and we didn't finish. And I was like, man, this was a bad experience. And I felt like I was not ungrateful, but considerate of his time. And so I just want to reiterate, you make sure you know at least some of the basics of the game, so that the teach is more enjoyable and can pass on.
So I discovered something over the pandemic. My wife does not want me to teach her games. She wants to learn a game separately. And then come to the table with the knowledge of the rules. Okay. And I found that really interesting, and I appreciate it too, because now she played Red Rising with me when Red Rising came in the mail, and I was like, this is incredible that I get to play it in person rather than having to play it digitally for the first time. And so that was a really good experience of just she's the kind of person that wants to learn on her own. And so I think it's interesting that there's different learning styles.
Yep.
Right. That it's sometimes being a good host is catering to those learning styles. Because even just watching a video with a group of people, she doesn't like that. She wants to be able to pause and rewind and figure out sections on her own. And I found that to be weird because I'm not like that. I can learn it in a group and be fine.
I'm that way. If I'm watching a YouTube tutorial, I'm just especially since they're so snappy
Yeah,
sometimes.
you have
It's
to
just like
rewind all the time.
all
Make
the
sure your
time, yeah.
brain understands exactly what it's talking about. Yeah.
Years ago, we tried to learn viticulture. This was 2 or 3, 4 years
Oh,
ago. I
yeah, I
can't remember
remember
now
this.
when.
We
And it
gave
was
up on
we
it.
tried to watch it on video, and we were all watching it on an iPad around the table while the game was out. And someone was like, "I don't want to play this." Yeah, someone was like, "I just don't want to play this,"
Yeah.
and we're like, "All right, we'll play something else." And
That's
then
exactly what happened to us.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then almost with the same group, a different time. I don't know if we watched like a different video or we didn't try to use the video. We played viticulture again, and even the people that didn't want to play it loved it. So it's like it's funny. Yeah.
We did the same thing where we're trying to watch the video. We're like 20 minutes in, and the guy, my buddy, was like, "Can we just play?" Okay, but the problem is we're like, "Okay, so step 1, reveal the fellowship. What does that mean? I don't know. Yeah. Rulebook. What does that mean?"
Oh man. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so last night I slept great, but you didn't, Brian, and that was because you were up late thinking about what makes board games fun.
Yeah.
And
so
tell me about this.
I was playing War of the Ring, like I said, and I was having way more fun than I normally do playing board games. And when I went to bed, I was like, why was I having fun? What was that? And I felt like it was like those moments or those memories that when you're playing it, you kind of feel like a child again. I literally had moments where I was playing the Shadow, and my buddy is mounting up his army, and I go, "The drums of Isengard ring out tonight." And I'm like, I'm sitting there playing, like I'm living the game, and like those moments. So I was like, when I think back of all my favorite board games, it's always those key moments that occur. And so if a game is able to create those moments, I think that's when a game is able to be like a great, like Twilight Imperium, when you're talking about this epic battle and you took out my stuff and you like those things. And so if your game is able to create those moments, I think that you have a chance to make a game very fun.
Yeah,
Love that.
That's fun. I'm so glad you mentioned Twilight Imperium, personal favorite. So
Well, and that right there, and not to get off too far on a tangent, like I love Twilight Imperium. It's like top 3 board game for me, just because of like those experiences. But also, man, it is such an investment to get to those big moments, and it's worth it. Especially like it's not worth it for everybody. Like it's definitely not for everybody. And I feel similarly about this. Is kind of a weird connection, but like EVE Online. I don't know if you Austin and I tried to do it. We tried to get into it.
You just wanted to mine minerals for hours. I get it.
Yeah. Well, it's because you realize, like, it reminds me of like those big moments in Twilight Imperium where like you just remember it forever and you talk about it, and like EVE Online like literally makes the news. Like it'll make like tech blogs and stuff. Like it'll show up, be like, the $10 million worth of in-game currency is lost in like this 48-hour war or whatever, and I'm just like, I want to be a part of that. Like those moments are awesome, but that game is just not fun. And I know that's
you don't think Twilight Imperium's fun?
Because no. EVE Online.
EVE Online.
Is very fun.
Clarify that, Zach. We're gonna lose all of our fans.
No. Twilight Imperium is super fun. EVE, I'm just like, I just wish I could find the fun because I want to get there for those big moments.
Those big moments. It's a grind to get to that point.
Yeah.
So my question then was, I have fun with games like Wingspan, but I rarely have moments in Wingspan where you go, remember when I drew 4A or I drew 4 cards and had 15 eggs on a bird? Like, yeah, that was really cool. Like, so it's weird because I have fun playing Wingspan, but I think it's because the engine is moving, but I never get those moments that I get in some of the other more epic games. So I don't know where that plays into it.
I'm sorry, I've offended EVE Online.
Jack says EVE Online is
fun.
not fun. I'm starting to smell heresy. At least he didn't say Twilight Imperium is not fun, guys.
If you think EVE Online is fun, that is great for you, and I'm very happy. And I wish I thought it was fun because it just screams everything I like.
We just didn't have the time to invest on it to get it to be fun.
Yeah.
We just didn't have time.
But no, I almost wonder if like, and this might be splitting hairs, because I think like it's almost not fun. It's really about these like memorable moments that you come back to, that like that you tell people about. Like, and I feel like that's a much harder thing to like from a creator standpoint. That's a much harder thing to craft. But you're right; those are the things that like I think separate good from great.
So not to like praise you guys and your company a lot, but Moonrakers, when we played it with our group, we were able to go back and we were having beers, laugh about the way people were trying to negotiate to get people to go on contracts with them. And those are those moments. And that's why when I said Moonrakers was one of my top 10 games, because it created that social dynamic of laughing and memories. And I was like, and so that's why I was like, man, thinking of like what makes a game fun, or why is a game higher than another game? And it's the ability to create those moments.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, it's that like taking big risks that pay off is like a big one for me, right? Like, and that's one of the, like, I think we all love that, and that's why that's really also present in Moonrakers a lot too. Is it's like at the end of the game, it's like you can really go all in, and like you don't know that you're gonna pull it off, but you can make an educated guess, and it's like you've been working together all game, and you choose to venture out on your own for the win, and like you fail miserably and you end up losing, or you win the game, and it just feels so great.
You're like, I'm gonna try to run this heavy contract by myself. I feel like I built my deck. Let's go, because if I don't, my buddy's gonna lose, or my buddy's gonna win, and
I'll never forget. I'll never forget on the Game episode when Becca betrayed you on the first contract. She just was like, "I'm not playing any cards. This is over." And it was just an amazing moment. In the time, I was like, "Oh man, no one's gonna ally with Becca because she just betrayed him." But she had that card that gave her a point, so it was wonderful. Good old Saboteur.
That's actually, that video is why I backed that game. That playthrough. Yeah, I was like, this looks like such a fun little social game. And I think you guys talked about one of your other episodes. I love card games, deck building games, card games. But when you're playing like Dominion, you do sit there watching your opponent just like do their thing forever, and there's no investment in it. And you're like, man. So having some sort of invested interest in if the contract succeeds or not, it's a lot more enjoyable.
Dominion is one of our favorite games, but when you're playing with people that are learning, or you're playing with people that just aren't as into board games as you, it's sometimes like, hey, do that card. Hey, you should play that card and buy that thing. Yeah. And it's just like, why am I telling you how to play your game? Like, I shouldn't be doing that, but my brain is telling me to do that. So. And that's not fun for them either. For like, hey, this guy that's going to win is telling me how to play so I can maybe win. And that's not fun that's not fun.
That's part of that alpha gaming syndrome that's been heavily talked about in the board game realm lately.
Yeah. I mean, and that's hard too on like games like Pandemic, right? Like, it's in your best interest for your best player to tell you how to play that game.
Yeah. So that was one reason why I don't care for Pandemic anymore. And I own it. It's still in my collection, but we don't play it because it's a quarterback heavy game where you're usually going to have one person who's going to be like, okay, the best thing to do is this, this, and this. And I'm like, at what point are we actually playing this cooperatively? And it's just other people are just kind of vessels to hold cards. That's why when I play Pandemic, I just say, you do what you think is best, because I want to give that player agency, even though we might not win. And Pandemic's a brutally hard game if you make a few mistakes.
Yep.
And another, there's a reason why I think it's still there. Gloomhaven's #1 on Board Game Geek. I mean, like, I feel like we've had so many of those moments,
memorable moments,
moments that it's just like, and it's hard to craft those co-op experiences, I think, and they just obviously nail it. And we also have that legacy of playing so many games together and like building our characters and like learning how to play well with each other, and then taking on super big bosses or super hard things. Like, I'll always remember those games.
Another thing I like about that game is like right around the time when I was starting to figure out everyone's characters and maybe started alpha gaming a little bit. Like, hey, don't you have that move that can do this? Then you change characters and it's a totally new move set. And maybe they get new cards and it's like, well, I burned that card. I don't have that card anymore. And so unlike Pandemic, where it's very easy for me to know what everyone at the table can do, I'm having to focus so much on what I can do to the best that I can't alpha game in that game nearly as much.
And I like that Gloomhaven put that minor rule in where you're not allowed to share the speed of your card just to keep things so there's less alpha gamer and quarterback game, because people are you can't pre-plan everything. It's all going to be, there's that one little element that they added just to throw a wrench in it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I'll say the other thing that can craft those moments actually comes for me in some party games. Like, I'll see like, especially playing with people who I feel like it can bring out a new side of someone. Like a game that maybe is a bit more creative. We played Reigns the other night, which is this like party game based on a Devolver Digital like mobile game. It had a lot of like kind of creativity into it, like coming up with different scenarios with people, and the people I was playing it with, like I just like had never seen that side of them, and like see somebody come out of their shell a little bit, or like just make me laugh in a way that I didn't know that they could. Like that social element, I think, is a strong suit of games that really creates, I think, unforgettable moments, especially in like the more party like style games.
I feel like party games also get a kind of a bad rap in our industry, especially by content creators, just because they're so light and whatnot, and like apples or Cards Against Humanity, which is funny because I actually, because of that, I don't play many party games because there's just not many people enjoy them. But I do agree that the few times I have, usually everyone's rolling and having a great time.
Yeah.
So it's just it's weird, you know.
I think one of the games that I have some of the biggest memorable moments from is Tortuga. I know Zach's played, but I don't know if you've played
the
Bryan.
one that looks like a book.
Yes. I mean, this game is a lighter game.
I think it's Facade Games, I think is what it was.
Yes, I think that is it. It's a lighter game. It is in my top 10 of all time.
Yeah.
And like, as someone who considers themselves a very heavy gamer as far as strategy goes, like TI4 and Rebellion, like those are like my top games. For that to be in my top 10 is bizarre, but it's just such a fun game.
Does that have a hidden role element to it?
Yes. So it's kind of in that strategic deduction realm of like Veiled Fate is, where it's like you're trying to figure out who everyone is and that can help you, but you don't win based on figuring out someone else. You actually win based on how much treasure your team has. And so it's fun, and it was definitely one of the things that we looked at when we were making Veiled Fate is like how can we replicate some of these really fun moments. And I think they nailed it. I really do. Like you think you know someone's on your team and you like help them, and then it turns out they're not on your team, and you're like, come on, you were obviously French. Like how are you?
Were obviously French.
Yeah.
No, I'm a British.
Yeah. So it's just really it's got those really surprising moments. So we kind of talked about like memorable moments. I would say surprising moments are very fun too.
Some moments in general, or something that could make me feel like a kid again, because we were playing War of the Ring, and I was like, we had the soundtrack going on, and
nice.
I was like, next time you come over, we'll put the 4K movie on, and I'm like, I feel like I'm 10 years old again. Like, if a game can make me feel like a kid again, that's why I also like X-Wing and Armada, because I'm playing with toys. I'm literally making sound effects. I'm just a big nerd. If I can feel like that childhood enthusiasm come back from a game, I think that's really important too,
Yeah.
And just like, I think a big part of that for me is also just like stoking your imagination a little bit, like inviting you into a feeling. Like theme is really important to me. Like art's really important to me.
Yeah.
Like when playing a game and feeling like I'm able to crawl into a world that's maybe deeper than I initially thought it was. Like I feel like that's a little bit of what you might be getting at as far as like, feeling like I was a kid again. Like it stokes something in you, like an underlying feeling that's like tied throughout the whole game.
I think theme is so important in games, and I think a lot of companies don't play into the theme enough. In fact, there's a game on Kickstarter right now that I talked about, My Father's Work, which plays so well into that theme, and that's one of the reasons I was like interested in this game, because it builds on that theme of the Frankenstein, like Dr. Frankenstein like work.
That's cool.
That's awesome. Aaron says that's why I can't play Spirit Island. Too much quarterbacking.
100%.
I like quarterbacking games. I feel like a bad person when I play them because I'm usually the quarterback, and I'm like, stop it, Austin. Stop telling people how to play the game.
I feel that way too about you, Austin.
No, not what I was expecting.
Austin's the alpha gamer. We can tell he's a controller.
Yeah, even just earlier today, I was just like, stop quarterbacking me, Austin.
I have heard that games like Spirit Island are good solo modes, and I feel like that might play into it because it's kind of maybe geared towards a solo experience, even though it's not. It's cooperatively, but I don't know. That's just
it's interesting.
And that's something about, like, I haven't played Seventh Continent.
Yep.
But like those types of like games where it's like, show me something new, like in the gameplay itself, right? Like let me discover something while I'm playing this, like surprise me like with the gameplay, and like that helps me, I think, enter into it too, of just like I don't know what's going to happen, or I don't know how these things are going to pair together. I feel like it's really hard to pull off in a game experience, but when it does happen, it's so satisfying.
Going back to that kind of like nostalgia feeling, and not necessarily nostalgia, I think that Jamie really nailed Red Rising, the feeling of Red Rising. And if you've read the Red Rising book series and you're getting these characters, and it's like, there's a character that it might be like, hey, this person scores 30 points if you also have this other character in your hand, which if you haven't read the books makes zero sense. But in the books, it's like, oh yeah, that person died to save that person's life. And suddenly it's like, oh, I know why that person is scoring points. It's almost like having insider information, and it's fun when you're playing the game. Like you're looking for that card, like, oh man, I really hope I can get Darrow and Mustang in my hand at the same time. And so like that's just like a really fun feeling that I think he pulled off really, really well in that game. And somehow that game's also really fun if you haven't read the books. So highly recommend.
Jamie's very good at making very good games that are like mechanically easy for people to understand and grasp. Yep. Which is one of the reasons I think the Stonemaier games has done so well. They're just mechanically well made games. Yep.
Big fans. All right. Speaking of My Father's Work, do you want to talk a little bit more about that? We're going to talk about games we're excited about. And I was really excited that you picked this one. I'm going to bring it up on screen here. So on Kickstarter right now, give me 1 second to bring it up. On Kickstarter right now, they're over $350,000, which is incredible. They have only been out. It's a short campaign, right? This came out pretty recently.
It's like a 15-day campaign, which has been very common lately. People aren't doing the 30-day campaigns. They're doing more 15-day campaigns, which I appreciate more than some people who do 10 or 8-day campaigns, which I don't think is enough time at all.
That's tight.
Yeah.
That's speedy.
I think Monster Hunter World had a very, very short campaign. I think that was maybe a 10-day campaign. Very short.
$4.5 million later in 10 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looks like the stream computer just doesn't want to bring it up.
It's interesting because it's on the stream on my computer and it's not on the actual live stream. There it is.
Oh.
Huh.
We got it. Yep.
All right. So I'm going to be talking about this Kickstarter campaign page on Tuesday, and I think they did a lot of really good things and a lot of things that I want to talk about more. But ignoring the page, let's talk about the game. The game looks fantastic. Tell me why you're excited about it.
Well, so this is going to be a worker placement resource management game, which very common. You can find hundreds of those out there. So it's not like an interesting, like a different gameplay mechanic. What I liked about it was the theme where you're going to be playing a mad scientist trying to create different types of experiments or occult type work, and because of the type of work you're doing, you're not able to complete that in a single generation. So you're actually passing on your life's journey plus your estate to your children, and they're going to continue this journey from you. And what I like about it is the way the game reacts to the way the players are playing. The village, you can actually see here on your stream here, you have this spiral bound book here, which is the worker placement locations, and the actions that you take in the game and the decisions you make will impact the town and the people who live there, and so you'll change pages as you move through generations to different aspects of the village. So I like the way the game reacts to you. You're going to have interesting mechanics and themes, but then the game is going to be really pulling you into the world and making things matter and having your decisions be impacting, which I think is really cool.
I completely agree. That book at the center of that town board was really, really engaging to me. It's just like such a fun component, right? Where you have this like persistent outside piece, and then the book that can change each from episode to episode that you're playing just changes drastically. And I think that's really, really neat.
Great table presence too.
Like, really is.
Yeah. And they came out, and this is one of the things I talk about with Kickstarter in terms of the value of Kickstarter, is when I'm looking at a game on Kickstarter, can I just get this at retail? Because you're almost always able to get games cheaper at retail. So a company who makes a game like this, they said, okay, we obviously can't afford to send this to retail because we're deluxifying it. And so what is that experience? What are the components? You can see the glass vials, the minis that they're going to create. It's going to be not like a standard game you can just go to your Barnes & Noble or whatever kind of store you go to purchase board games. Like when I pull this game out and put it on the table, people are going to be like, wow, what is this? I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah. No, it looks great. I totally agree. I love that like book sitting on top of a like it's the game I'm talking about is literally just a book for a board, but like
Which has been kind of a recent trend lately. I think Jaws of the Lion with Gloomhaven really pioneered not having to have a board. Instead, we can have a lot more detail and more variety and easier setup by putting it in a spiral bound book.
Yeah. I'm always like, all the stuff that they're doing with the Gloomhaven, I'm just like, that is so much work. Like filling all those pages up, I'm just like so blown away by the amount of content that is put into stuff like this, where you have like, I don't know how many pages are in that book. Does it say on their page?
I don't know if they've revealed fully, because they're constantly with this run. Some of the stretch goals are talking about additions to the spiral bound. They're also doing an app-based game, which I'm critical of app-based games, because the lifespan of an app, I'm not sure if how long that will last, but they are claiming that it'll be available for internet use if they ever decide to not support it through their app.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so your critique of the app base is more just from like if you need it to play.
So let's say 10 years from now, I'm like, I want to play my father's work. I haven't played that in a while. Pull out my new iPhone 40, and the iOS system is no longer compatible, and they haven't updated that through the system. It might not be available on the App Store. And so now I'm not able to play that game because it's dependent upon an app. So that's one of the things I'm always critical of. But they claim that they're going to have it be available for a website, so that it's going to be available for people to modify and keep it going.
That's nice
for generations, because I think not a lot of people talk about the app lifespan. Like keeping your app updated through OS changes is a lot of work.
Yeah,
a lot of money, especially when it's not a retail game, because the game is not going to be having legs after Kickstarter unless they do second editions or whatever.
I found it interesting, and that's one thing I'm going to talk about on Tuesday, so I won't go too far into it. But it's not that it's Kickstarter exclusive. It's not like they're just going to sell it on their website afterwards.
Yeah,
which I found to be interesting. I mean, it makes sense. It's a very expensive game. You don't have the margins to sell it, but I get it. And I think the app probably does play into those margins not being there. So.
Chris mentioned in the comments real quick, I don't know if you can bring his comment up, regarding the 30-day campaigns. A lot of the reasons why companies are doing 15-day is there's usually between like the whole middle of a campaign, there's a massive lull. Like if you check KickTrack, not a lot of growth, not a lot of people are checking the campaign page until the end of the campaign, when people want to see all the stretch goals that have been released or any daily unlocks. So they said, to keep people entertained through the life of the campaign, let's cut it in half, and see if we can do as much with less time. So I think that's one of the reasons why campaigns have been slashed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, we feel it in ours. I mean, especially like, even with Veiled Fate being 15 days or whatever, what it ended up being, Austin, you remember?
Oh, good question. I think it was 15.
Yeah, like even with that huge lull in the middle, and we advertise so heavily ahead of launches, like majority of our sales are first 2 days, and like and it's fun to keep it going. It's like it's nice to give people that we were able to course correct a little bit and respond to some feedback, because that's like our biggest shining moment where most eyes are on it. But yeah, 30 days is a real long time to keep that hype up. It
really is
exhausting.
Yeah, it's interesting. On our in general rule of thumb is it's thirds. You do a third of your funding at the beginning, a third in the middle, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it is, and a third in the last day, or last 2 days. And our campaigns have been 50, 25, 25. And that's just because we do a lot of promotion beforehand. But I agree that like a lot of these games, sometimes you're seeing like 60 or like 50, 10, 40 on like the back end, because it's just kind of the way Kickstarter is moving, right?
Yep.
But then you have companies, like there's some games that are live right now that like they're releasing content through either stretch goals or through like they're just not revealing it until the end, or they're revealing like a new pledge level at the end that's like an all-in pledge. And those are 30 days still, 25 days still, because they can get engagement and keep people and convince them along the course of it.
Utilizing that FOMO.
Yep, definitely. All right, Zach. We were talking about this game a little bit earlier, but Mini Quest Adventures.
I see this as a little bit of a wild card. So I was going to talk about Monster Hunter, right? That was so I didn't have as much time looking at this, but then Monster Hunter ended, and I just like, oh, I probably should talk about something that's actually live. But so this is interesting. So it's a Mini Quest Adventures. It's a dungeon crawler book game from 1 to 4 players, kind of inspired by 16-bit video games. It's got like some random generation elements. You get rewards like weapons and equipment that help you face off against enemies. I'm a sucker for. I feel like, Austin, you'll appreciate this. I feel like I'm always chasing our like the feeling of our glory days playing like Lord of the Rings Online. This is like the most deep we had ever gotten into an MMO, and like I just like love the feeling of like the raids and like kind of partying up with your friends and like crawling those dungeons. So I'm always a sucker for dungeon crawlers, and especially ones that you can you're responding to something new every time you play. You get these, unlocks of like different weapons and equipment, and kind of chasing those feelings of, I don't have time to be sinking into MMOs these days, but like this is kind of scratching that itch for me a little bit. It's a cheaper game too, like the low end, like
it's like $35.
Yeah, 24 euros, and so my cam stopped working, but I would say that there isn't a gameplay video, which is very surprising and could be a bit of a risky purchase with that in mind. But I think also at the lower price point, I think it might be worth checking out if you're into those same kind of things that I am.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you brought up, Lord of the Rings and just like that kind of feeling of like trying to go on a raid and stuff. And I know that we were talking about doing a dungeon crawler at some point.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it at some point. I want to chase that feeling more and bring it to a board game at some point because I just love it so much, and I think that and I know you do too, Austin. I think that passion might bring out something interesting. But
there's a reason why we love Gloomhaven so much. But Gloomhaven is also, it's hard to get to the table, and honestly, without that app experience, what was that app that we used?
It's like the
Gloomhaven helper, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
Yeah, it was. You needed it because it was such a fiddly game.
Yeah,
it's very fiddly.
100%. But this feels like a lighter version of that experience. Like there's no way I'm getting Gloomhaven to the table with anyone but me, you, and the 2 other guys we play with. There's no one else is going to play the game with us. And so like I would like more games in my collection that kind of fill that like that scratch that itch of dungeon crawling at a lighter experience. So this could be that.
Kevin brought up the temple promo thing that we did for Veiled Fate. That was such a fun, like, little choose your own adventure thing. I'd love to do something like that in the future with a game, to have that an interactive experience. But like we're just talking about, apps and ongoing experiences that are using a digital presence are really hard to do. So
there's a space for digital presence though, because say choose your own adventure like books. I don't know if you've seen them, like where you're having to flip through multiple pages. Okay, go to scenario 26. Now go to an app, does that all for you and keeps it smoothless. So there are situations where the app is great. It's just how long is the livelihood of the app,
Did you play the Lord of the Rings Adventures in Middle-earth series, Brian?
I didn't.
Oh man, you'll love it. You really will. It's really wonderful. I enjoyed it greatly. And if you end up not liking it, if you ever run a Lord of the Rings RPG, you've got great minis for that suddenly. So I love that.
It was on my list to buy. Amazon, or not Amazon, Barnes and Noble keeps having it on sale, but I keep missing it. So I'm waiting.
It's a wonderful game. I've played it. I think I've only done like 8 scenarios, but it's really fun.
Yeah. One of the things that's nice about and something that I think we'll look at as we kind of dive into more digital games or the companion apps is like one of the things that's nice about like the companion helper, for example, is you can just get a straight up DMG for Mac or like the exe file. Like you can get it rather than it being attached to like Steam or iOS or something like that. So like I think I could see us using something like itch.io or something like that, where like you can you can have like your copy of the game and that can live. And then like if you need to and you need to come back to it, like you can use some emulation software like 50 years from now to, run Windows, whatever I'm on right now, like to do it. And so I think giving people access to that like core.
Isn't there a thing like where you can
sense.
make an open source at some point? Like
Mhm.
if at some point you're like, okay, we're no longer able to afford to keep this up, open source, we'll let people
host it or whatever
host
themselves.
it, do whatever they want. I think that would probably be the best and cheapest way for a publisher to keep a game active, because you're going to have communities that are going to be loving these games for years to come, and they're going to be maintaining it. You always have those people to do that.
All right. My game I am most excited about is not a game. It is the Wormwood dice.
Big old dice. Big old dice.
One of the Christmas presents I got a few years ago was a Wormwood dice vault, which I love, and it has some incredible. I think these are the raised. I have to go look now because these are the raised obsidian, I believe, and I love them.
Fancy dice.
Yeah, and as a DM, like you have to have the best dice at the table. You're not a real DM, right? So it definitely makes it worth my while. But like I was looking through these, and the blue sandstone really, really caught my eye for some reason. I was like, I have to have those. So now I also want the hematite, and I also want the ruby. So Zach, I'm not going to spend that much money on these, but you know, there's just so many good dice in this series, and Wormwood is so smart, guys. I'm going to be talking about Wormwood on the show on Tuesday too. The way they have set this up is the cost of entry is only $15, right? You're not even like really seeing what these dice cost on the page, right? It's just like, oh, pretty dice. I want some of those. $15. Yeah, I can pledge for that. That is not how much the dice cost, just to be clear. But it's the barrier of entry to get into the pledge manager. And the FOMO is so flipping high because they're doing it in waves. Wave 1 delivered November 2021. That's not that far away. Wave 2, January 2022. Oh, that's next year.
Wow.
Oh, Wave 3 is February 2022. Shoot, I missed Wave 3. Well, I have to get on Wave 4, right? Because that's March. Like March is pretty far away. Yeah. And so like I was sad that I forgot to check it the day it launched. And by the time I checked it, it was already on Wave 4. And so like the FOMO was there. The fear of missing like that earlier date was so high that I just hit, like as soon as I got to the page, I saw it and I hit back. Like it wasn't even a question. And so they are good at what they do. They're very, very good at what they do. Then you get all the way down here and you start seeing the actual prices. Like a single D20 is $15 for this one. Like that is very expensive. They're not all that expensive, but a lot of them are that expensive. So,
that's so cool.
They're awesome looking. So big fan. This one especially, so good.
Their presence at cons is always so great too. Like it's so great to like just actually like they make great products. They just do. It's really high quality, and I like a good. I don't know,
so do you have the 7-piece set? Is that what you have?
Yeah, I have a 7-piece set. And here for the raised obsidian.
Jasper's cool. Ooh.
Does it come with just a dice, or do you have to buy the box separate?
So the box is like $100 or more by itself, depending on what you get. And then the dice are going to be like another $90 for like a 7-piece set usually. So it is not a cheap thing. Oh no, I should not have looked at this. The blue turquoise. Oh, that's calling to me. It matches my sweatshirt. Yeah, and this is just to be clear, this is
looks pretty good too.
I agree. The Jasper's dope.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, this is a partnership with them in Dispel. So I don't want to give Wormwood all the credit, but Wormwood is definitely the people running this campaign, and it's a partnership with Dispel. So Wormwood is there's that blue sandstone I was telling you about. Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of the blue sandstone, Austin.
Oh, well, you can have the other ones, and I'll take the blue sandstone. Anyway, I'm just gonna start drooling the more. This is what I have. These I can't recommend these highly enough, except for you cannot play these in a low lit environment. You cannot read them.
Yeah, the contrast is pretty low.
Yep, contrast is low, but they're very cool, and I love them. So all right, I'll stop talking about that because I'll talk about dice all day, especially because I'm getting in the RPG mood because of Tuesday coming up. So, but yeah, that's what I'm excited about. Ryan, it has been awesome getting to know you better. I can't wait for cons to start up again, or just for us to hang out in general, because Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, board games, I think we hit the big three things that require me to have a friend. Yeah, we're right there with each other. And it would just be really fun to hang out in person. I'm really excited to do that in the future. But I'm really, really glad you came on the show. And this is almost like hanging out in person, right? We get to at least see each other.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for your show. You've had a great year of growth. It's only going to continue. You do great content. Thank you for bringing that to the community. We can't wait to send you our next game to see what you think of it. And yeah, we'll
Austin
definitely
and
have to have
Zach,
you
I
on the show.
appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thank you. It was an honor. My wife was like, "Why would they want to talk to you?" I'm like, "Come on,
Come on, babe.
come on,
Harsh.
I got people to watch me."
Hey, way more than us. Yeah, you're doing great.
Oh, you guys are doing good.
Tell her that we think you're board game famous and that we love you and you deserve to be here. So don't listen to her. Don't worry.
Thanks,
Actually, I take that back. Listen to your wife. That's very important.
Yeah, happy wife, happy life. That's all I know.
Thanks to everyone for joining us for the show today. Don't forget about our giveaway for a Moonrakers Kickstarter exclusive edition. If you've forgotten, I had to put that on the cover because, Bryan looks great next to that Moonrakers edition right there, but we're giving one of those away. So all you have to do is comment after the show is over in the comment section with the words, "It's a trap," and tune in on Tuesday night where we'll be giving that away on the stream, which is going to be an RPG stream of Star Wars. It's going to be a D20 system homebrew. So it won't be their Fantasy Flight system, but it's going to be fun nonetheless. All right.
Now, Austin, don't you have a rule for the comment though? It has to be witty.
Oh yes, it can't just be "It's a trap." If it makes me laugh, I'm definitely going to put it in. Let's just say that. I'm not going to say I definitely won't put it in if it's not funny, but don't just say "It's a trap." At least put Admiral Akbar or something. Yeah. Come on. Anyway, thanks for being on the show, guys, or tuning into the show, guys. Guys, dang it, everyone. Bryan, I do this thing where I say "guys" and I'm working on it. It's getting better.
I do too.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in the show, and we'll see you next week.